Hi, all. Welcome to Heirs and Spares, the show where we bring you insight and opinion into two of the most famous royal couples on both sides of the Atlantic. I'm Kinsey Schofield, and I'll be bringing you the latest on the Duke and Duchess of Sussex in California.
Is Meghan Markle's father, Thomas Markle, truly heartbroken or just attention-seeking? His latest interview has reignited the family feud, from trust issues tearing the families apart to what this means for Meghan, Harry, and their brand. Stick around for major insights.
And I'm Tessa Dunlop, and here in the UK, I'll be bringing you the latest on the Prince and Princess of Wales.
Tessa, so much coming from the Prince of Wales lately. I think I'm surprised at the amount that we've seen him. We would be crazy not to start this off by talking about Prince William at the Taylor Swift concert. What was your first reaction when you saw that he was there and then leading into his very dad dance moves?
I was placating my daughters. It's not fair, Mum. It's not fair. Why weren't we there? Because we're in the same city. In fact, a whole bunch of teenage girls from my street were all dressed up, as you can imagine, as Swifties. So they went, I said, have you got tickets? Oh, no. We're just going to stand outside the arena. And then they were going, we're not Princess Charlotte. You know, there was quite a feeling of, that's not fair. And like, I came out with a staple line that your grandparents come out with. Nothing's fair in life, darling. Nothing's fair in life. Because it was like the William Anker golden ticket, wasn't it? And the most beautiful picture. And Taylor Swift doing what she does best, kind of giving her love glue onto those kids like a sprinkle of fairy magic. It was almost like being, you know, the golden mother-in-law in the Cinderella carriage. Like Williams, he's rocking this out there, leading a modern dad, making it manageable and super cool. He took his son to the football. Did he go alone to the football?
He took Prince George.
Yeah, he was alone to the football.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and kind of in the time
before he took Prince George. Yeah. This time he was alone because he had to rush from Ascot. He was the day before he was at Ascot, and then all of a sudden. So he is, I mean, I really am surprised at how busy he's been lately. Also, it just felt kind of, I felt like after the Trooping the Color, they might dip out for a little while because we haven't caught up since then, but Catherine's statement, so vulnerable, that beautiful picture, how courageous she was at Trooping, showing up, knowing she was going to be picked apart left and right. And I really did think that they would kind of dip out for a little bit, but we have seen him nonstop lately.
Yeah, but you know, in so many ways, and Kate's helped facilitate this, the Prince of Wales behind the lens, those two photographs, very strategic, nothing ever happens by accident within the royal family. One, they've got the backs to cameras looking practically out to see the dad they love so much.
Thomas Markle just gave an explosive interview, claiming Meghan has abandoned him and he never expected this from his daughter. He even compared himself to King Charles. But is this an emotional plea or another strategic media move? Trust is everything in a family. For Meghan, Thomas Markle has broken it repeatedly. He staged paparazzi photos before her wedding, then backed out of walking her down the aisle. Since then, he's been talking to the press non-stop. Can you trust someone who sells your private moments? And he's not the only one. Meghan's half-siblings also profit from talking about her.
The next one, you know, so intimate, they jump, she'll catch them if they fall, leaping over the sand dunes. Only a mum could have got that shot. Only a mum who's a gifted photographer could have got that shot so well. But again, forefronting William as the parent, there is something quite modern about that. And let's not pretend that Kate and William have always been seen as in the conventional lane. Whatever you think of the Sussexes, they've been seen as more progressive, more kind of edgy, a bit younger. Actually, although they're not actually necessarily younger than Meghan, but this reframes William. He's the kind of dad that can, the dad in the face of adversity, stepping up to the plate. And I think Kate's very much helping facilitate that. She realizes it's a space he can occupy, and it helps him seem a little bit less mid-page dad, even if his moves at the Swiftie concert aren't really cutting it.
I loved him. Every time I watch that, a Charlie Brown Christmas movie and they're dancing, like I'm like, oh, but that's how I move. So maybe I'm really not the best judge of dance moves. So that's interesting that you feel like this is kind of a Prince William relaunch into the dad that can do everything. I think that that's a very good point. And it really doesn't feel like It's kind of sad because I think that you have to acknowledge that a lot of the reason that he has been thrust into this position is illness left and right.
It is sad, but it's something he knows how to deal with. From an early age, William learned about resilience and he learned about coping mechanisms and managing his emotions, for better or for worse. And I think, funnily enough, this makes him seem more sympathetic. It's the silver lining from their narrative where there's this giant health crisis. Even that response I said from kiddies going, oh, it's not fair, why can't we be Prince Charlotte? But also, but her mum's ill. So there's this kind of, rather than a resentment, which a lot of the young feel towards the royal family, they've got everything, they're in the gilded cage, they get the tickets to the football, the tickets to the Swiftie concert. Yeah, but look what they're up against here. This actually, it reframes them. It makes them seem, for those who aren't necessarily super royalist, it makes them seem more approachable, more manageable. And who can't be sympathetic at the moment? You'd have to have a heart of stone, Kinsey. That's the truth.
The royal family's trust issues parallels with King Charles. Thomas Markle says he relates to King Charles because they've both been cut off by their kids. But Charles isn't out here giving interviews every week about Harry. He's been silent despite everything Harry has said about the royal family. Charles is still powerful, while Thomas Markle is seen as an outsider. One controls the narrative, the other lets tabloids run with it.
Well, here's me transitioning into a heart of stone to bring up something kind of petty. Tessa, please don't be mad at me. But
not you, Kinsey. Petty Kinsey, surely not.
When I was looking at the video of Prince William dancing, I couldn't help but think about how miserable Prince Harry kind of looked at the Beyonce concert. Is Prince William the ultimate Swiftie, or do you think he is more comfortable in himself than perhaps Prince Harry is, or is maybe Prince Harry doesn't really necessarily like that celebrity world? Do you have an opinion?
I think that there have been difficult times for Harry. Maybe the Beyonce concert. Remember, he didn't have the cushioning of his children. There is something about the shield of your own offspring at events like that. They kind of tap into you. They help manage you. I see that with my own husband, men of a certain age in their early 40s. And if they've got a child there to sort of almost occupy the space to help embolden them, to make them feel okay, to give them a role. William had that at the Taylor Swift concert. Arguably, Charlotte was his raison d'etre, the very reason he was there. Whereas Harry, he's a little bit too old to be a Beyonce fan. And Archie and Lilibet, well, they don't do public appearances that often anyway, and they're a little bit too young. I mean, a toddler Beyonce fan doesn't kind of going to work. So he's more exposed, and he's more exposed anyway because he's far away from Hudson.
Speaking of Harry and Meghan, we did hear from Thomas Markle over the weekend. This was an hard eye roll from Tessa. This is an interview with the Daily Mail. He's turning 80 years old, and he said he thought Meghan Markle his daughter would always be there for him. He said that he felt like he had a lot in common with the King Charles, which he never expected, but just the fact that he doesn't have access to his grandchildren. I think this is probably a stupid question, but do these kind of interviews help his cause? Is Meghan going to open up the Daily Mail and say, who I think she's sued, and say, you know what, I think it's time to call Dad?
No, he's attention-seeking, Thomas Markle. He's in a place of pain. In fact, he also, if he's looking for similarities between him and the King, they also are up against it health-wise. They are beleaguered elderly men. But the difference is King Charles is king and Thomas Markle is not, the last time I checked. So
Meghan's business moves and reputation management. Meghan is focused on rebranding herself. Her new brand, American Riviera Orchard, is about luxury living, but some say it's bad timing with her family chaos. Honestly, this could be smart.
There is something unfortunate, and I think it seems a bit callous almost, that there can't be some kind of bridge built behind the scenes. A lot of families have these ruptures. It's unfortunate from the Sussexes' point of view that they have them on both sides of the family, on both sides of the Atlantic. I think in time they will find a way forward. And my only concern is because neither men are in good health, that when will that happen? What's interesting is I think we've seen a more clear reach out from Harry towards his father. That relationship much less damaged, whether Thomas Markle wants to own that or not. much less damage than the one between Meghan and her father. And one of the reasons is, the royal family are discreet. King Charles hasn't gone and said anything about his son. Quite the reverse, actually said nothing. He's a blank sheet. Arguably, the one failing is he didn't find time to meet Harry when he was most recently over here. So that can seem like, the busy dad that Harry, there was implicit criticism of that. Dad was never really equipped to be a single parent dad. We were kind of quite low down on the pecking order. But Harry's never been equivocal. He's always loved his father, and the king's always loved his son. Whereas I think Thomas and Meghan, there's some serious ruptures there. And the key is, Kinsey, it's the breakdown in trust. Can you rebuild that? Can you rebuild it?
Well, I mean, that's what I was going to ask you next. Can Meghan pick up the phone and say, Dad, I want to talk to you, but you can't tell Samantha, you can't tell Thomas Jr. I mean, I'm not being critical of her family when I say, her brother has a regular, and we saw it trending just a few months ago. Her brother has a regular YouTube channel where he talks about his sister. He impersonates his sister. It's almost like she's in an impossible situation, because how could she access her father without jeopardizing some of that privacy?
Yeah, and as Thomas Markle started this, let's just work along those lines of him and the king being the same. The big difference is the enormous gulf. One is a very, very rich man and the other one ain't. And anything that drives clicks with Thomas Markle or his other offspring's brands drives money, income, streams of income, which you need for healthcare in America, for example. So I can understand why.
He's in Mexico, but yes, I understand your point.
So he's in Mexico, yeah, sure. He is in Mexico, but he'll still be needing private healthcare.
She's in a difficult position. Like, I will criticize her for not talking to her father and for her father not having access to his grandchildren, but at the same time, I cannot, in my head, put together the strategy that reunites these two families, because I think that she's petrified that it will get out, and they've become very private about their families.
The more she builds her empire, the less she relies on the royal family narrative. Should she keep pushing forward, or will family issues follow her? Comment below. We want to hear your take. What's next? Can this rift ever be repaired? So is there any way this family drama gets resolved? Can Meghan ever trust her father again?
You see, Kinsey, at the same time, we hear that same criticism levelled. I'm often getting it when I go on shows and try and be sympathetic towards the Sussexes and royalists in Britain saying, yeah, but why should the royal family try and reconnect with them? Because look, they're not trustworthy. They might put it in their next book, the forward of the paperback, etc., etc. But I would say the two aren't comparable, actually, in some respects. Like Thomas Markle just kind of leaks left, right and centre. There doesn't seem to be a business plan. Whereas clearly Harry and Meghan, Harry felt he had to get it out, whatever that was broken, and he had to vomit out that pain, that anger towards the institution, towards the monarchy. And when they say they've moved on, and I believe if you look over the last year or whatever, they have moved on. They're trying to rebuild a very different brand. And there is, I think, plenty of evidence that the royal family could trust Harry and Meghan in a way that I'm not sure Meghan can of her father, but you can forgive. You don't have to, you can ring Thomas, or you can forgive your father without necessarily sharing your innermost secrets about your next range brand with him.
Right.
Or when you're with your husband at the moment. What we would like to see from them, because then the royal family would have to deliver it in return, is a redemptive branch to Thomas Markle. We get it, Dad. It's been difficult. I know you're up against it. He's probably lonely in Mexico, don't you think?
I do think so. Speaking of
So
Meghan
figure.
well, maybe we can head on we'll jump on a plane. We'll go give him some company. Us in a six-pack. All right, so speaking of Meghan's new branding, American Riviera Orchard, we've seen the jars of jam distributed to local celebrities, and then we also saw dog treats around Trooping the Color, which was a little questionable. They are saying in the Daily Mail that they feel like Meghan is going to launch for her first product, not jam, not dog biscuits, but a rosé. They said that could be very commercially lucrative for her. Several other celebrities have alcohol brands. And I think it's pretty much, I think it's very on brand for like luxury and royal. Do you have an opinion?
funny, when she did her TIG website, I think her favourite wine was a red wine, but red wine has gone totally out of fashion. At the moment in France, they're literally having to pour red wine away because the young French are not drinking red. The trendy wine to drink is rosé. Okay, and we know that Meghan loves to ride the curve, lead the curve. She would see herself as, I think, ahead of the curve.
Honestly, it seems unlikely. Unless Thomas steps away from the media, she won't risk it. Should she forgive him without letting him back in? Is peace possible without trust? Let me know in the comments. This drama is far from over and we'll cover every twist and turn. Love royalty and scandals? Subscribe and turn on notifications. Don't miss the next juicy update. Thanks for watching. See you next time.